Welcome to another episode of Grace Notes. When is it time for someone to go on hospice? Now, this is a problem a lot of people have because they have limited understandings of what hospice is and what hospice does. What I have experienced is that most people think that somebody goes on hospice when they are on death's door. So people will wait till maybe 2-3 days before the person is about to pass before they use hospice services. And I'm here to say, no, you've waited way too long. And that has to do with, again, our fear of death and our lack of understanding of the benefit of being on hospice. So the word hospice itself comes from that root of hospitality. And it was started, this concept of holistic support for a patient was started by a woman named Dame Cecily Saunders at St. Christopher's Hospice in London in the 70s. Over time, our healthcare system, Medicare in particular, has embraced hospice as a benefit. So the first thing I want you to know is that hospice has two meanings. One is hospice is a location. So somebody will say, well, he's at the hospice. And that's because in your community, there may be a residential hospice, a place where people go to die. So that is an accurate use of the word. But most importantly for all of us, hospice is a benefit, and one that you should understand so that you can take advantage of it should the time come. So the criterion that Medicare, which oversees people's health care 65 plus, the criterion they use for when hospice is appropriate is if a doctor looked at a patient and said, it might not surprise me if this person was not here in 6 months. So perhaps a person has pancreatic cancer, perhaps they have another kind of chronic disease where the people are showing decline, something along those lines. And at that point, that's the time to get admitted to hospice. Why? Because hospice, unlike other forms of medical treatment, provides a holistic wraparound services for both the patient, who's at the center of the care, but most importantly, for the support system, the family and friends that also surround that patient. So hospice will provide for you a social worker, an RN, a nurse case manager to oversee your case, a chaplain if you should choose to use that. A home health aide often might come a couple days a week, depending on your needs. A bereavement counselor to help you with the grief you're anticipating with your loved one dying, and possibly a volunteer that can provide respite or special services such as music or bringing a pet by for a patient. So why do people not understand this? Well, part of the reason is that we're still afraid of death. The other part is that hospice, one of the key things about hospice is that you can no longer be seeking treatment or cure for your illness. So if you have cancer and you're tired of chemotherapy, you don't want to do another round of radiation, then that would be a time to go on hospice. Now, what people misunderstand is from the doctor's perspective, often death is the enemy and that they failed. Or at the very least, they think they're taking hope away from a family and a patient. So doctors are often quite reticent to have the conversation about hospice. Patients and family members don't understand hospice and they're waiting for the doctor to recommend it. And so you have kind of a cat and mouse game of who's going to bring it up first. My view is get on hospice as soon as you are medically eligible. And here are some of the things that have happened in my experience with hospice. Sometimes people get on hospice and they get better care. Their medications are monitored. They're on a regime. They take care of all kinds of things. Other parts of their life are put in place. And often, sometimes hospice patients, after a while, actually get better. And if they get better, they legally must be discharged from hospice because they're no longer medically eligible. So instead of going on a decline, they actually start to improve. So that's one reason to just have your care overall monitored. The other reason to get on hospice is that you can always choose out of hospice at some point if some other treatment comes forward that you would like to try. So, I have cancer. I don't want any radiation anymore. I choose to go on hospice. I'm getting care. And then there's a special clinical trial that I want to get enrolled in. But I'm on hospice, so what do? What I do is I revoke hospice. In other words, I say, I want to leave hospice. I go try the clinical trial. Maybe it works. Hallelujah if it does. And maybe it doesn't, in which case I'm back to where I was before. And guess what? I get to get readmitted into hospice. Hospice assists patients in using the last part of their life to maximize what it is they want to create in their life, the legacy, the planning, some last experiences that they want to have, having some difficult conversations, maybe mending relationships with people they've been estranged from. Using hospice services when you're eligible allows you and your family members to have the best possible course of action and to actually live each day until you take your last breath. So if you're not sure if someone you love is eligible for hospice, ask your doctor. You can always change your mind, but take advantage of getting on hospice early. One last thing, if you're under 65 and not on Medicare, most life insurance policies have a hospice benefit. So look into that as well. I hope this Grace Notice helped you. I invite you to subscribe to my YouTube station. And also, if you have a question about end of life, please email me at Arlene, A-R-L-E-N-E, @dyingingrace.com. We will continue to make the Grace Notes as you request with the issues and the questions that are most pertinent to you. In the meantime, live each day in grace so that when it's your time, you will also be dying in grace.